Okay, so let's talk about sales during social distancing. I'm gonna put everybody on mute, but I am looking at the chat. I'm looking at the chat. So if you need me, that's a great place to do it, to raise a question. All right. So I'm Ashley. I'm a revenue consultant, and I specialize very specifically in service-based businesses with founder-led sales efforts, and helping clients smooth the gigantic roller coaster that comes from having to sell the thing that you do and then turn around and do it. There's always, in clients like that, a tension in how you have sold a lot and now you have to work on it. So you forget the sales entirely. And then when the work is done, then you go, oh, shoot, I have no sales, and you scramble to get sales again. And so you're just constantly in a roller coaster, and I come in to help smooth that. One of the reasons that I point out that I have a very specific specialty, so that is service-based businesses and in about a price range of 6 to 7 figures, is because that's where I am best. I'm not great at product sales, for instance, and there are some nuances that make big differences. So if you are a service-based business, this is all for you. And certainly some of it translates if you're not, but I really am best suited for people who are selling services. Where are we? Okay, so, and also relationship-based sales. So that means it's not transactional. One of the reasons that I pointed out the price point, 6 to 7 figures typically. Transactional sales are really, okay, you just want them to buy a widget and spend a couple of dollars with you. That is a totally different set of sales skills. And again, some of them can be translated and adopted, but typically the price point that requires relationship-based sales also means that relationship-based sales is such an investment in time and money that it just doesn't make sense for something that's more transactional. So if you're building long-term relationships with your clients, that's really what I'm very, very good at. And my business has strategy, coaching, and sales training practices, along with automation. I feel really strongly that we should be building relationships at scale. And then I have a sales VA program where I have a virtual assistant who has been trained in all of the rapid technology explorations and all of the rapid list building that we like for sales, but sometimes we certainly don't want to do it ourselves. Okay, that's enough about me. So here's why I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this, is because I did B2B sales through the recession, but not just any B2B sales. And I'm talking about 2008, 2009. I had just closed a business and walked into Oxford International, which would be my home for 8 long years. I ended up running the North American ERP practice. But when I first started, I was really looking at B2B sales through the recession, but not only that, ready, it gets worse, phone sales through the recession. It was all over the phone. I think it's a little different. I don't think that the same thing can be done over the phone today. I think the landscape has changed quite a bit. But it was tough then too. So I was all over the phone doing national enterprise sales with crappy internet. It gets even worse. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't even particularly have LinkedIn. My company was very distrusting of it. I think we have some real advantages, but I'm going to share with you the types of things that really worked for me during that time. And at that time, I was selling SAP and Oracle consultants who were between $150 and $250 an hour for system upgrades, implementations, and customizations, because that was the type of thing that I was selling. And I was selling it to IT departments that had just been cut in half, where their bosses were all declaring no IT spending at all. They were literally being told, do twice as much with half the staff, and explicitly being told no new hires. So there I am saying, hey, how about a super high-end, high-priced IT consultant? And it felt like really an uphill battle. But I would like to draw the direct parallel that then we were working with economic uncertainty, widespread layoffs, and very, very volatile markets. Now I have started to think of 2008 as a sweet time where I fell in love with my boyfriend who would become my husband. But at the time going through it, it was awful. Just like now, we are facing economic uncertainty, widespread layoffs, and volatile markets. This experience really taught me that you can do a lot during a time like this. It is going to take some true grit. So today I'm going to take you through a couple of different theories that I have, including the dip in the hustle. I'm going to take you through exactly what your messaging might sound like, how to farm during this time, how to hunt during this time, and I have recommendations for logistics and technology. Okay, are you with me? That silence I will take to mean yes. All right, so we have the dip in the hustle. This is the dip. I've been talking about this as a dip that represents your sales cycle for a long time. You have to imagine that you are on a roller coaster and you are not wearing a seatbelt. That's sales. We can all agree that that's what sales feels like. And this is the roller coaster that is meant to throw you off. It's throwing off a lot of people right now, but that's okay because you know that it exists and you know that you're going to have to hold on tight and that it is going to get ugly. But if you hold on tight and you continue putting up volume and you continue putting up effort, it will reward you. So we know that this is the case. And actually, this sales dip, it looks like this all the time. I had a client who was really down in the dumps because this is obviously a hard time for everyone. And I pulled this back up and I said, do you remember when at the beginning of our engagement, I showed you this dip? This is the time I was talking about. This is what we've been preparing for. This is why we've made all those relationships, and you all have made all those relationships. It's time to harvest them. All right, so here is the roller coaster, no seatbelts. It's time to hustle. We know this, and you can do it. It is not going to be easy, but I'm going to give you some tools that will help you make it through. But I need you to know that uncommon success comes from uncommon effort. So it will really take more hard work than the next person is putting in. That's okay, because you got this. I'm looking actually right at Debbie Biddle. There are 4 people that I happen to be talking to. With this silence, it's a lot, but I happen to be looking right at Debbie Biddle. And I know, Debbie Biddle, that you have been putting in uncommon effort for a long time. So I know you got this. We're going to make it through. Okay, so first of all, here's what you need to know. This is a numbers game. This is not new. It was always a numbers game. Gretchen, I'm looking at you too. You just nodded. Yes, you've always known it was a numbers game. In this game, attempts are king and quality is queen. One of the things that I work through on all of my clients is that there is an instinct to put a lot into perfecting emails and perfecting sales materials and perfecting messaging. And all of that is very, very important. But what is more important is that it get out the door. So unless you are sending 100 or maybe hundreds of attempts out, so that's calls or emails or whatever way you're making attempts, that number has to be big. And unless it is big, it will not matter what the quality is. So attempts king, quality queen. Are you with me? I will take your resounding silence as a yes. One of the ways to get through this is to have a no goal. This means you make a goal for how many times today you are rejected. This solves two problems. One, it starts to make being rejected kind of fun because you can cross it off as, yep, I was going for that. And two, it takes you away from, thank you, Amy. She said, yes, she's with me in the chat. That is incredibly helpful. So it helps you be excited then about getting a no, but it also takes you out of the place where you celebrate and walk away every time you get a yes. So in this market, we just have to keep going. You just have to keep sending out attempts, even if you have the world's best conversation with someone and they are looking like they're going right into your sales funnel and quickly gonna pass through to sold, you still need to be putting up big numbers at the top of your funnel. You can also get really excited about the data. I am not a data person, and I have said this since the beginning of time. Traditionally, I am not a person who looks at data, except when it comes to my sales data. So I'm going to be able to start making predictions about how much volume I have to put out to get clients back. Now, I'm going to put up some example numbers. I don't know that these are the numbers you have to put out to get back what you're looking for. I think as your price point goes up, these numbers probably increase by a wide margin. But let's just say, and these are sort of general numbers that are true for my business today. If I want to get someone to have a meeting, I might send 30 emails. And of those 30 emails, 3 will respond and 1 will schedule a meeting. And then from 5 of those meetings, I might have 3 good ones, and that might result in 1 client. So now I know I have to send, if I want 1 client, I have to send 150 emails. And as you start putting up this type of volume, you can start to rely on these numbers to be true. So these numbers aren't true if you send out 5 emails, but if you send out 150, you'll start to be able to predict. Now, this is really helpful because when you decide that you need 1 client or you need 3 clients, you know exactly what you need to do at the top of your funnel. So if I want 3 clients, I need to put up 450 emails. And that's not going to take me 1 day. It's probably not even going to take me 2 days. It's going to take me a long time. So I know that I have to, when I have to start and when I have to complete to be making the kinds of client numbers that I have goals for. Okay, let's talk about messaging and what exactly that might sound like. So so we're going to change messaging given that we are in this unprecedented time. So at Oxford, consultants were very expensive, highly specialized, and traveling consultants. Remember I said the IT departments were being told not to spend any money. No work was getting approved. And the IT managers that I was talking to were telling me, I just let half my staff go. Why would I bring on an overpriced consultant? It was a good question. So I shifted the way that I spoke about the work we were doing and started talking about it like this. Think of us in case of an emergency. We're really fast. That was the one thing that Oxford could offer. We were really fast. So if you're in a jam, I can have a consultant on site on Monday. And the way that I phrased that was, listen, if your payroll system goes down, you still have to get paychecks out on Thursday or Friday. There's no excuse. That is when you call me. So from there, it opened up sort of a wedge in the really tough exterior of people who had no money to spend. But I was going to be there if they really had to solve something. Also, consultants are cheaper in the long term. So this is something, many of you are consultants here. Consultants are much cheaper in the long term. And one of the places that you can go to prove that to a client and get a sense is a website called Cost of a Hire. And just Google it. I can't remember if it's .com or .org, but Cost of a Hire will tell you in your area how much it costs to hire, let's say, a chief diversity officer. So if it costs $250,000 to hire a chief diversity officer, well, so that will include things like the cost of living in your area and how that will affect the overall salary. But then salary isn't the end of it, right? Because salary will also include salary will have Social Security and employment and all of the stuff on top of it, and make it a much bigger number actually than just the number of the salary. So I use that math in particular to talk about how, okay, my consultants are 150 to 250, but that is inclusive of all the benefits and all the Social Security. So it sounds expensive, but it is still less than what you would spend to bring on a full-time person. And also the engagements with me are short-term. You don't have to keep someone forever and a day, and you're not obligated to keep them after the project. And I tell you what, if things really go south, you're not obligated to keep them through the project. And that really let people feel safer about bringing on a consultant. And then I figured out which technologies were getting approved, and I focused on that. And those in particular were some of the things that will help us get through today, which were business intelligence. So anything that pointed that looked at data and pointed towards, okay, how are we going to get out of this? And anything that made people feel safe. So we did a lot of work on finance systems. Your businesses will have exact parallels to those points. But what I want you to do is just start testing it and get it perfect. So you won't land on whatever your version of keep me in mind in an emergency is. It might be the market is down, and when you feel a little bit more secure, the minute you feel that, I want you to be ready to make an investment because you're going to get some wild deals. But just make sure that if that is resonating, you'll piece out what is resonating after you have enough of these conversations. And once you have that perfected, then go wild and lean into messaging that works. How can you help people get out of this? And then my last little trick is lead with your main objection. So if you keep getting the same objection over and over and over again in any of your conversations, so nobody is spending money, nobody feels secure enough, this is pretty discretionary spend, start with that as your first speaking point. So for example, in the discretionary spend example, you can start every conversation with, most people think that diversity and inclusion is a discretionary spend, but I can tell you that the people who are really rising to the top and have employees that are more engaged in the long term are investing in this today. What I said was, sometimes people think this isn't the right time to bring on a consultant, but many of my clients are gaining a competitive edge by taking the time to focus on processes. I'm going to pause. Any questions on that one in particular, or on what we're doing so far? How are we doing? Are you with me?
Yes, all good.
Ooh, thank you. Okay, let's talk about farming. So farming, I will explain this jargon, is account management and taking care of your existing accounts. So this is really everybody that you've already spoken to, everybody that you've already done business with in particular. My main recommendation for you is that you connect on a human level first without a direct agenda. This is probably going to get much worse before it gets any better. And I know as you're thinking about how to sell, that is first on your mind. So how do you connect with people while being sensitive to what we're all going through? And that is just to connect on a human level first. Don't try to have a sales agenda at all. What you want to do too is stay top of mind through this, but it's a great opportunity to keep it, to enhance the relationship and deepen it. So ask about their well-being, ask about their company's well-being. I would even say that if your client says, oh, I know I owe you an answer on a proposal or something like that, I would let them finish that sentence so that maybe if they say, I know I owe you a proposal and we're going to say yes in 2 weeks, that you hear the rest of that. But I would absolutely say when your client brings it up, if you can handle it, say, no, 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 no. This call was just to make sure you're doing okay. So if you can get away with that in any way, and usually you'll understand what's going on just by the tone of that. Oh, I know I owe you, or I know I have an answer for you finally. It will give you a good clue about where you stand business-wise, but the much more important thing is to ask about well-being, including that of their company and their teams. That will really go a long way. Thank you, Brianna. So some of the ways to answer that are, how are you holding up? I personally am beginning to ask every question, or beginning to start every conversation with how are you holding up, and just providing a space for it, like it's going okay. And people will direct these kinds of open-ended questions anywhere they want to. So if they want to talk about how homeschooling is going, they will talk about that. If they just want to keep it to business, they will talk about that. And there's a category of questions that I really love that allow people, if they want to stray into really personal stuff or keep it to business. How are you holding up is one of them. Another one is like, how's your summer going? That's another one that really, if a client is going to make it personal, they're going to talk about their vacation. And if they're not, they're going to talk about their third quarter projections. Good. I've asked that right question either way. Okay, how's business? How's the mood over there? This is really good information gathering, especially at enterprise level companies, where they may be bracing themselves for big layoffs. You want to know that so that you understand how and what to sell going forward. Or if they are just pointing their business towards something different, you want to know that too. And it's just a great time to get information and to be there as someone who they can vent to or express concern to, and that will help you stand out as someone that they like and respect. What are your biggest concerns right now? Starts to delve more into a business conversation. So I'll trust you to listen to that and be the judge of how appropriate that particular conversation is. But at some point it will be appropriate to say, what are your biggest concerns right now? And then move into, okay, tell me what's going on with the budgets and what initiatives are still moving forward. And then what can I help you with? These are all great questions that move your client from friend and confidant back towards business. But you get to ask these questions once you've really asked all about how they're holding up, how their teams are, how the company is. This is a great opportunity to strengthen the relationship. One of the things that you can do, this is real practical advice now, is offer a webinar for your clients. So sometimes that is exactly what you offer, and sometimes that is a little adjacent. For instance, the clients of mine that have been working remotely for a long time have had a lot of luck offering webinars for their clients where they say, hey, it's not really what I do, but we've been working remotely forever and we kind of have this thing figured out. If you want me to talk to your senior level management, I'd be happy to host a webinar. Or for your team. So if there's something that you can help with, it's particular. So a great example of this is, I work with a lot of software developers, and they have been working remotely successfully as an industry for a very long time. They know all about the technologies that make it work. So they are strengthening relationships by being a resource for all the technology. Here, if you haven't heard of Slack, we've been using it for ages, and here's why it's great for culture. That's really valuable information that you can use to build a relationship and stay top of mind and prove that you are useful to a client without actually talking about business yet. Other great tools for relationship building, a handwritten note goes such a long way. This is not something I'm very good at doing. Actually, this is a really good opportunity for me to point out that I give a lot of advice, and you should take what works for you and then scrap the rest. I don't even take all of my advice, and in my methodology, there's plenty of wiggle room. So do what you're comfortable with, and if handwriting a note is not your jam, it's okay. But what might be your jam is a $5 Starbucks gift card, which is always very welcome. There are some of my clients who are, I guess we're not really going to Starbucks anymore, so this isn't playing out, but it will, I promise. Sending someone a request for a meeting with a Starbucks gift card and saying, I'd love to hop on a virtual coffee with you is a particularly classy touch. Then there is something called SIPSby, which is, or maybe it's SIPSby. Anyway, it's a way to send tea. You don't have to write this down. I have a resources document that I'm going to send out like the minute we're off the call, and it has links to all of these great companies. Okay, the next one is Sugar Wish, which you're welcome. There's Sugar Wish, which allows you to send candy. And actually that one is super cute. You select the price point that you want to gift someone, and then it sends them something saying, Ashley wanted to buy you a gift. And you pick out the candy that you want in your Sugar Wish box. And it's just a super cute way to send candy without having to worry about someone's taste. And then there is a company called Greetable, which I have not personally used, but the lovely and talented VA, Amy, says that this is really great. But it allows you to pick a small gift and then have it wrapped in a really beautiful box with photos you choose. So it's a really personal way to send something through the mail. All right, that's what I have for deepening relationships with existing clients. Are you ready to move on to hunting? Great. All right, hunting is new client acquisition and finding new business. This is probably what you're most concerned about in this market. Like, how are we going to find new people? And I will say it is important to double down on existing relationships, because it is going to be easier and faster to do business when people are ready to do business. They are really only taking calls from people they trust sometimes, but that doesn't mean there's not a way to do it. All right. I have a couple different techniques I'm going to demo, and these will work for you with modifications. These are actually usually things I've been using for years. Okay. The first technique is the 1-2 punch. So this is where you send a cold email to someone and then follow up immediately with a LinkedIn invite. You want, when they pull up on their phone, even if they're looking at, if their LinkedIn goes to their personal, that they're getting 2 notices that say your name. And here's how that will sound. Casey, I hope you're holding up. I thought I'd reach out. I help service-based businesses get better at sales. I'd love to be a resource for you down the road. I understand you might not be looking to solve anything right now, but I'd love to be in your back pocket if you ever need to right the ship. At the very least, we can commiserate about being entrepreneurs in the age of COVID-19. Okay, so I'm going to send that to their email. And if you're ever wondering how to find someone's professional email, you just go to hunter.io and it will likely give you the email that you're looking for. Okay, so then you go to LinkedIn, because you want them to know that you have done your research. You haven't just blasted this out to 1 million people, even if you have. And you're going to send something that looks like, hey, Casey, I just sent an email out of the blue and wanted you to make sure you know who I am. This literally is just, hey, Casey, I have a face, and you're going to feel more badly if you reject it, because I'm showing you what I look like. Very effective. Okay. So that's the 1-2 punch. The next one is Crystalnose. This is a good technique. So I will say Crystalnose is a technology that's a little expensive. It's a little under $30 a month, which I think is expensive, especially if you're doing it the whole year. But what I always say is don't do it for the whole year. Just when you have a really high value prospect or a set of high value prospects that you want to get in front of. But this technique allows you to communicate the way somebody else wants to be communicated to. And it is magic. So this is an email that I sent to Amy, who's on the call today. And I like Amy a great deal. But I sent her this super casual email, which has 4 emojis, 1 sent from my iPhone. And what is that? 5 exclamation points. This is not an email I would have sent in 5 years ago. Because at some point I was telling all the people that every time you put an emoji in a professional email, a puppy dies. That is the frequency with which you should be using emojis. But actually, my software developer friends changed my mind because actually emojis, and maybe you've noticed I use a lot of emojis. It is a great way to impart emotion and impart your personality. I'm not suggesting that if you are a straight-laced man that you use all of the emojis that I do, but I will say that it can be a great way to use your personality. But one of the reasons that I sent this to somebody like Amy, first of all, I adore Amy. She's the cutest. We are friends separately. And if I sent her a tilted email, that's not the way she wants to be communicated to, and she might even take offense to it. So communicating casually with people who want to be communicated to that way is a really good way to just start building good rapport. So Krista says, thank you, Amy. So you might be familiar with the DISC assessment. If you are not, you can actually take the DISC assessment along with some other assessments on the Crystalnose website, and I'll send that link. But it makes it makes a prediction about who you are. It's just like any other personality test. But then where Crystalnose really gets brilliant is that it makes a prediction based on someone's LinkedIn account on what their DISC profile will look like. So this is my buddy Megan, who is the founder of the Dames, and she did not take the DISC assessment, but Crystalnose did some predictive analytics on her LinkedIn account and came up with, okay, here's how you behave with Megan. You act casually, but be assertive. She likes it when you tell stories. She likes it when you, she doesn't like it when you want her to follow a specific set of instructions. And this starts to be really informative, especially when we're talking about like putting together big deals with people that you need to get to know really rapidly. So it goes even more into how to communicate with Megan. And I'm demoing a very small piece of what this will look like, but Crystalnose gives very, very specific instructions about, okay, so we could have looked at what exactly the subject to get in front of Megan would look like, or the greeting. I have chosen to expand just the body of that email, but it tells me, okay, don't go into detail in writing and discuss as much in person as possible. And I can also look at exactly how she likes to be communicated to in the call to action and the sign off. And then if you are even to go even deeper into how to communicate with Megan, there are examples of emails, and they go through things like asking for an interview or asking for an appointment or following up on a deal. But in this case, I picked investor pitch, and this gives me exactly the type of email that she wants to see if you want to get in front of her to make an investor pitch. Okay, so that's communicating to someone exactly as they want to be communicated to. My next technique is to connect with someone on LinkedIn. The first step of that is to be someone they want to connect with and provide content that appeals to them and lay breadcrumbs. Gretchen, yes, that technology is only effective on LinkedIn, I believe. But I think you can actually run an email through Crystalnose as part of it. I use LinkedIn so much that it hasn't actually occurred to me that I would use something outside of LinkedIn. But anyway, that's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so the next technique is to connect on LinkedIn. When I'm talking about laying breadcrumbs, I'm really calling on the idea that today, the way the market is, you cannot call someone and sell them directly. It just doesn't work, particularly in, now that is probably inaccurate for SaaS products or low ticket items. I bet you, I've definitely answered calls and bought SaaS products that were introduced to me, including like Drift and which is a chat bot. I thought that one was pretty neat. And the price point was like $26 a month. I'm okay with that. But in the price points that bigger ticket items are, it really has to be your buyer's idea to reach out and buy from you. So then the trick becomes becoming someone that is compelling enough that they want to connect with, and then start sharing content that is relevant to them, maybe not even relating to what you do. So if you can be answering a question that they are asking, and then being a really good resource for that, you can move over to what you're actually doing business in. Now that was the worst example of the worst laying out of how to do that. And I'll try to give some specific examples, but this is exactly what I do and probably how you found me. Maybe, probably. But I try to be someone that you want to connect with. So it's one of the reasons that I talk all about being an executive mom. It's one of the reasons that I started my group of executive moms, which in Madison is now 600 people, and I gave a TEDx talk about it. It's one of the reasons that I do work with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Those are all things I am really interested in. I am visible about them, and I like to talk about them, and it's a really good way to start connecting with people that I don't already know. All right, so here's how that might sound. Hey, Morgan, we're both active in tech in Chicago, and I thought it made sense to reach out. I work with companies to support and encourage senior level women and parents. I'm writing a book on it now. I would love to bend your ear if that's something you're thinking about too. I'm excited to connect. So in this case, really what I'm calling on is, do you feel like someone who encourages women and parents? Perfect, me too. Fun fact, no one thinks that they do not encourage women and parents. Here's another example. Hey, Morgan, I'm excited to connect with other entrepreneurs. I share content here on sales strategy, now with the added challenge of social distancing, parenting, also with the added challenge of social distancing, and negotiation. I look forward to interacting with you here. Smiley face. And this one in particular is pretty effective for me. I really only want to say, here's what I do, but I also do and am all of these other things. And that has been really effective. As you do this, you can use automation. I'm a big fan of automation, you might know, but the quality of your automation rests in the quality of your messaging. We all know automation as having the hallmark of just terrible messaging. Hi, do you happen to want any software developers? Is something that I got asked in the exact same email by 3 different companies in the course of a week, a few weeks ago. It was literally the exact same LinkedIn message, and it should have been embarrassing. But that's what we're used to. I think realistically, we should be using automation to invite people to things, to share articles, all of that. And in email automation, that's particularly effective too. I often share open TEDx applications with my network via automation. It's just a great way to stay top of mind and to start building relationships really at scale. So all of those things you're going to do, you're hopefully laying breadcrumbs. So these are the things that are interesting enough that they make people trust you, want to read more of your content, want to talk to you, so that by the time they need something, that by the time I am ready to buy a commercial building, there's only one person I would ever call, and that is Gretchen, because I've known her since forever. And I actually know her from Junior League. And I know her from being a great person and from being out and about. And although I don't have experience with her as a commercial realtor, I have the sense that she is the best one available today. What automation do you use to send those LinkedIn and email invitations? Great question. Since I know so many software developers, just had one developed, and I have a custom one. There are great automations available, though. I've heard wonderful things about Octopus CRM, but the important thing would be to get the messaging right. The automation service, I'm not sure matters so much, as long as you're careful about the numbers and you don't make LinkedIn mad at you. All right, I promised you that you do not have to cold call, and I meant it. You do have to get on a scheduled phone or video call. So the work that you're doing today is probably just to get someone on a Zoom call. As you're sending these communications, you should not be worried about doing anything in that email or that LinkedIn messaging that is not to get someone just on the phone. Don't try to sell what you're selling. Don't try to describe. You can maybe say why you want to get on the phone, but the purpose of that email is just to get someone on the phone. And I will say, video is much better than phone. You absolutely cannot sell by email. You use email to get a call. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh, Charles Allen says, we use outreach.io. Thank you. And Tanya asked, what's the language, the one I developed? It's probably a JavaScript language. Okay. Logistics and tech. I like Zoom. I have gone on record as saying this. We should all be on Zoom. And also that you will not regret paying for the first level of Zoom, which has all sorts of interesting things, including breakout rooms. If I wanted us each to develop our sales pitch by getting in groups of 6, and that would happen. You would all go into groups of 6, discuss it, and then when I pushed a button, we would hop back into the general session. Don't worry, I won't do that to you. I love Zoom. You can also use Skype or GoToMeeting or Google Hangouts. They are all great. And don't worry about writing feverishly. These are linked in the document I'll send you in a moment. I mentioned this before. Hunter.io is a great tool to find professional email addresses. It scrubs the internet and at least finds the email convention. So if it doesn't know that I'm ashley.quinto@sales.com, which is not really my email address, it will at least be able to tell me that I am likely first name dot last name @sales.com. I love Mixmax. Mixmax is an add-on to Gmail that allows you to do really intricate templating, which Gmail does now too, but Mixmax does it really, really well. It allows you to schedule emails and see who's opened them. Yeah, that one's effective. I hate going through the back and forth of when should we have a meeting. And X.AI is a robot. It's not very much money. You decide whether you want Andrew, or I can't remember what the woman robot's name is because I always use Andrew. But if you can get, what you do is you say, all right, Tara and I want to have a 30-minute Zoom meeting Andrew, will you set it up? And then Andrew, the robot, takes me off of the email chain and communicates with Tara until something is set up, and then puts it in both of our calendars. That one's a really good one. I will say I use a VA for this now, because between Chicago and Madison and keeping a weird schedule, these are just more difficult for me, and that is the best money that I've ever spent. But if you want to keep it to technology, I would recommend X.AI followed by Calendly. Calendly is feels like something we shouldn't be sending to clients because they have to exit your email and then go to their calendar and then compare. And that feels like just a really great opportunity for your prospect to lose interest and do something else. Mixmax actually gives you the opportunity to put links for like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 4 o'clock right in an email. And so they can click it and it will schedule it on everybody's email. That feels a little better. I have mentioned Doodle, but maybe only to make fun of it because it is hot garbage. Fun fact, I once looked for, this is different because we were all in an office at the time, but I purchased underpants on my work computer. Like, not that big of a deal. They're just underpants. And I'm sorry, but I am 37 years old, so they're not even racy. They're just gigantic. I like my underpants to also like make a great tent in a pinch. Anyway, and that's the type of underpants I purchased in the privacy of my own home on my work computer. And then you know what Doodle did? Doodle made sure that for like the next 3 months, I had plus size granny panties on every ad surrounding the Doodle. So I'm still mad at Doodle. It is hot, hot garbage, and I'm not kidding. Also, the design is awful. Okay, but you can use it if you're so inclined. Okay. And then GMass. I love GMass, actually. GMass is a really great tool to send a lot of emails at once, but not make it look like you're sending a lot of emails at once. And they have a free version that allows you to send 50 emails, and it's the same email. But if you send a casual email, for example, hey, would love to see you at this event of mine, link sent from my iPhone. Okay, that sounds so casual that when I send it to my 50 closest friends, all of them will think that I sent it just to them. I just really like 50 people a lot. And but when I click GMass, and this is a plugin for Gmail, when I click GMass, it will send everyone an individual email so you don't have to put it in BCC. If they look at the email, it will be sent only to them from me. The other option is yet another mail merge. As you are going about doing emails to a lot of people, this is a great option for creating bulk emails that say essentially the same thing, but are personalized in key ways. So you could have the first name and then the first sentence, for instance, be personalized for everyone that you send out. And if you just spend 15 minutes saying, okay, for Allison, I want to ask, how are things at the Mom Project? Hope you're holding up. For Brian, I want to say, hey, I hope things at Health Grades are going well. And you can make all of those personalizations, but have it in a document and then work with yet another mail merge to send that out as individual emails. Okay, let's talk about the actual video call. So I will say background and lighting matter a lot. One of the best recommendations that I have gotten in this new environment is to include more than just your head and neck. You want to get your neck, shoulders, hands, or make it more natural. I have gotten on the phone with, including my dad, who was like just the top of his head until I said, Dad, what are you doing? And then he got more of his head in frame. You don't want to be that person. Actually, everybody that I can see now is doing it really swimmingly. So you're probably in great hands anyway. But yay. Thank you, Tara. Okay, next, make better eye contact. One of the problems with webcams is that they're just in an awkward place. So often the webcam is above the screen, so you're always looking down then, especially if you're looking at your keyboard or something on the screen. One of the ways to do that is to move the video, the window with your video up to the top and middle where your webcam is, and it'll be closer to simulating eye contact. But thinking about lifting your eyes up is really important to making a personal connection through a video call. The next is absolutely consider using a professional recording mic. This is one of the things my dad does too on calls, because he knows that it sounds so much better. But if you don't have a professional recording mic, just use headphones. You can also stand up. That affects the way your voice carries and how happy and powerful you sound. It just sounds better than being slouched over in an office chair, even though that is exactly what I'm doing. And then smiling. This is like a classic sales tip, but people can hear a smile in your voice, and we all need to hear your smiling voices and see that over the video anyway. Next, you got to have a great background. I have included a link to a woman that I know out of Australia. She's pretty cool, but she works specifically to create branded backdrops so that if your office is your kitchen, you can just put a backdrop and hide all of your cabinets and have it be replaced with something that is super on brand for you and your business. That's really slick. Lift up the webcam. No one likes to feel like they're being hovered over. And if you're especially on a couch with a laptop on your knees, you are, I promise, creating an angle. Let's forget that, at least on me, it would create the world's largest double chin. But you're creating an opportunity to look down on the people that you're talking to, and you could do better, is what I will say. So lift up that webcam. Next, you should have studio lighting. I use studio lights, the links of which I have included in this document. You can also use a ring light, very, very popular. And you can buy them for like $50 or under. But if you do not want to spend $50 or under, just get a lamp and remove the lampshade and put it behind your computer, and that will light your face. Really, you just want your face to be lit and not backlit, because that will affect the way you're seen on a screen. But for the love of all that is holy, don't be in bed. Okay, good. Agreement? Now that you've heard me say that, you went to a webinar where I said, for all that is holy, don't be in bed. You are legally obligated not to ever take another Zoom call from bed. Okay, so I would love to work with you on your sales strategy if that's something that you need right now. I'm doing lots of strategy, particularly in this time, and I would love to hear from you. If we can work together, you can reach out to me at ashley@ashleyquintopowell.com. Thank you all so much for coming. We have a couple more minutes, and I'll stay on the line for as long as you need to answer questions. So thank you all so much for coming.